Alrighty, welcome back to the DDF podcast. This is your host, Tanner, or TK. And again, joining me today for the second day in a row would be my good friend and league mate in multiple leagues, Marty D. How are you doing today, Marty?
I'm well. How are you doing today, man?
I'm good. I'm good. I was going to do the applause when I introduced you, but I forgot. I didn't get to it quick enough, but welcome. Testing our soundboard. So this is my first podcast using Riverside. Hopefully the quality improves. We'll see. I'm kind of going through all of the different programs and things to kind of see what works. So hopefully this one maybe becomes one that works well. So the idea for today is that I asked Marty to send me some of his trades that he's made in some of his Dynasty leagues. I aggregated some of the ones that I've made as well, some of which he's seen as we're in some of these leagues together, some of which he hasn't. And my idea for this was that we're just going to kind of talk through these trades, give each other our analysis and our opinions on if there's a winner, why we made the deal, etc., and then try and see, what we think as we go through each one of these things. So, does that sound good to you?
Sure thing, dude.
So on the screen, if you're watching, I've put together just a little slides presentation here with some deals. All of these except for this first one are accepted and done deals. And I'll explain the context behind this first one here in a second. But if you're watching, what you'll see is the number of the deals. So make sure, we're talking about deal one right now, part one, and you'll see why there's a part two in a second. And in the bottom, there's format in terms of how many teams, if the league is super flex, PPR, and how many starters, because the amount of starters makes a difference. So would you like to tell us about this first part one and what the backstory to this one kind of is, and explain
Of,
for the people listening what it is?
of course, Tanner. This trade between you and I know you still hold some vengeance here and maybe some unwanted feelings, but this was a trade proposed to take on two quarterbacks for the 49ers and an upcoming running back one for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I was going to offer in return Jimmy Garoppolo, whose career could go up, could go down. We don't know. And Travis Etienne, who just had a hot 2022 season. He sat out of the 2021, but he really played his butt off. I know he has some flaws, but he is explosive. So that's what makes him valuable. And being the running back seven and, PPR, he's a good value. And then I guess with that trade, I had to offer up a first rounder a first pick for the second round.
Yeah, so the background of this is that Marty had put ETN on the block in one of the leagues we're in together, and he had a couple of offers. I didn't need him desperately, but also I have a kind of stable of quarterbacks, and thought I would throw Trey Lance and Brock Purdy at him as a potential answer to his quarterback deficit that he has on the team. So just for full context, I know he just said this, but just so everybody knows, it was Trey Lance, Rashad White, Brock Purdy, a 25 third, a 24 fourth that I would have been sending in exchange for Garoppolo, ETN, and the 201 for this year. And he ended up going with a different deal, although I thought this one was a great package to offer. And he ended up going with something else, which we'll look at in a second. But do you want to tell me your thought process as to why you ended up not going with this deal before we move on?
No, sure. This one took me kind of all day. I really sat on this one. This one probably took me, I think this is the longest I've ever stared at my phone for just one single trade. I really did like the package, but it was a high risk. And then high payout. It was even. Don't get me wrong. It was a good trade. It was just with the uncertainty around Trey Lance, who was a first rounder just a couple, drafts ago. And we're about to be coming up to the 2023 drafts. He still doesn't really truly have a QB1 job as projected. And what happened to him last season was unfortunate, but because of his value being so saturated, nobody wants to take him up right now. If he were to go get traded by the 49ers to a different team, yeah, this would be a no-brainer, but I don't think he would have given up two QB1s. Purdy is going to be QB1 when he's healthy. Rashad White will be RB1. But just like, we've seen with Dalvin Cook, all it takes is one bad season and then they pick up body part and they're done. I mean, running backs are tough right now, but if you got one who's good, you got to hold on to them. None of these guys are all ever going to be like Derrick Henry. But if they can be, that's a valuable running back. It really is.
Yeah, my thought process was, you know, the Niners QB1 and the backup for, for an older, aging, uncertain quarterback in Jimmy G. Yes, the difference between Rashad White and ETN is somewhat marginal, although there is a world where they probably have a similar finish this upcoming season, depending on the pass
Mm-hmm.
catching of Tampa Bay. I think what really, when we had talked about this off camera, what really hung you up was, or held you up was the 201, which I know you're clinging to the second rounders in this draft in this league. So, um, but we're going to move to what was actually accepted between him and a different league mate. And then I'm going to allow Marty to kind of talk us through this one as well. So I'm going to switch to the next deal. So this is part two. And this is going, did it switch for you?
Yeah, swap.
Okay. So, and this is going to be the deal that ended up being accepted. So, would you like to talk us
Yeah,
through
so
this
in
one?
this trade, I traded with a different league mate in our league and ended up taking, a quarterback who hasn't really proven himself yet, but he does have the QB1 job. Like
Jordan
the
Love.
old fashioned, yeah, Jordan, apologies, Jordan Love. Um, being, the QB1 for the Green Bay Packers and being mentored by a future Hall of Famer, Aaron Rodgers. I mean, this is similar to what the NFL was built on, at least when we grew up watching this stuff. Um, Quarterbacks sat on the bench and they were mentored. And typically it paid off. I mean, you got Tom Brady, who paid off for him, Peyton Manning. You got a whole list of Hall of Famers who really, it really worked out for them. So, you got Rivers who done the same. I mean, you got Breeze. A lot of these Hall of Famers really had to sit on the bench and observe. So I'm optimistic. The team is behind him. I liked all that noise behind it, but I didn't hear the same noise on, at least through social media, what we're reading and all the different reports that they had the same faith in Trey Lance. So that was one of the biggest deciding factors because the 201, do I want a young running back who's probably going to have 2 or 3 seasons, or a quarterback who's backing up for who was Mr. Irrelevant, who doesn't have who has value all of a sudden? I mean, I was really slipped because this sucker was on my team I drafted and I dropped him. So that one bit me in the butt. But here, at least with Travis Etienne, I got him earlier from the same league mate, but I didn't give up nearly as much. So I thought, even though I made a mistake early by dropping Jordan Love, because who would have foreseen Aaron Rodgers going to New York Jets? I did in the beginning of the season. He did. That opened up his job. Travis Etienne came my way. All I gave up was Ayuk and Tolbert. Tolbert, it's not even in the wide receiving three conversation because Michael Gallup still continues to perform with the Cowboys. So just for giving up Ayuk, who is still elite, don't get me wrong, Brandon Ayuk is wonderful for the 49ers. I was able to make some value off of Travis Etienne for the last season because he played. He took James Robinson's job. Now James Robinson doesn't even have a job, and I got him on my team. And I know we'll talk about that one maybe or maybe not, but I just have some faith. And you're right, I did value the 201 really highly. I would love to get A Chain, Miller, or even Kenneth Walker backup mate. I mean, regardless, somebody who's young and fresh. It's always a good sign for a running back on your these dynasty teams. I'm learning.
Yeah, so I understood. And again, just for context, I'm trying to remember that some of you were just listening. So the deal was Jordan Love, like we talked about, Keontae Ingram in the 204. Marty received and traded away ETN in the 23-212. So yeah, I get the sentiment behind Jordan Love. You're taking a gamble. Now, he may pay off, he may not. Ingram, irrelevant in this format for the most
Yes,
part,
yeah.
unless there's an injury or something. And you only had to drop back 8 spots in the second. So I get the trade. I understand. I wished you would have accepted mine, but that's how it goes. So
So
all right,
I do have one
go
question
ahead.
for you, Tanner, because there is some more background to this trade, and you tell me your personal opinion. I was going to give up the 308 and 311 picks, which are later third round picks, and instead I just thought I'd give up the 212 and just one pick, so I could keep two later rounds. The one thing I was looking about in these little rookie drafts was that there's a lot of undervalue wide receivers who currently probably won't have a job this year. But if their team that they are on and those athletes above them do fall short, it would be nice to have someone that can, create some value in return.
Yeah, there's not a lot of difference between the 212 and the third round picks. So the 2 for 1 there, I'd probably would just hold on to that too. So I think they're all dart throws at that range, especially in this shallow format we're playing in. So yeah, I think you made the right call in terms of that specific aspect of the deal. All right, so we're going to switch it on to trade three, or technically two. So we're on part two. So this one is one that you haven't seen before, and this is one I made in another league that I'm in outside of that one that we were just talking about. That's a little bit more deep. So it's the same format, but it's start 11. So you have an extra flex and an extra receiver in the starting lineups. Still two running backs, and this was made shortly after the draft amidst the Kenneth Walker panic and the Kenneth Walker fall from grace that we saw when Charbonnet was picked up in the second round by Seattle. So I was looking to tier down. So I ended up sending Kenneth Walker, who I drafted really early in that league, for Dameon Pierce and a 24 second. It's risky because Dameon Pierce does not seem to have a ton of job security long term. But my thought process was that I would get similar production probably this season between the two. And running backs are such on a short leash nowadays, anyways, that it might be worth it just to pick up the extra second and recoup some of the draft capital that I had spent in that league. So, what do you think of this one?
I personally love it. I know Damon Pierce doesn't have a lot of job security, but he has no competition as it stands for this 2023 season. So I do like this trade a lot. Kenneth Walker does have competition, and it's only really his second season on the team. I mean, yeah, what happened to Damon Pierce is awful. Don't get me wrong. At the end of the Texan, it hands a whole new head coach too. But I'm optimistic, and you got a second out of it.
Yeah, that was my thought process too. I just hope Pierce becomes something long term, although the draft capital may indicate that that's not likely. I know Devin Singletary may end up stealing some work from him, but I don't see him as a threat as much as somebody like Zach Charbonnet in the passing game. So I went back and forth on this one and my thoughts and if it was worth it or not. But I think in the long term, I hope, or definitely in the short term, I feel good about it. In the long term, I guess time will tell.
Who knows? He might become like Travis Etienne after the season, and you should ship him off.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and just for some other context before we move on, my other running back in that league, I'm very beat up at running back. I traded a second for Tyler Algier before Bijan got drafted there, which stinks.
Oh no.
And I also only have Miles Sanders, and I do have Devin Singletary, so I do have the handcuffs. So that's my running back
Well,
situation. Um,
that's smart for yourself, actually.
and I'll show you some other trades momentarily in this one. I have another. I think I have another one that I made in this league that to let you. We'll see what you think about that one too. So let me switch it here to trade number three. Now we're back to you again. We're back to that same format, 12 team
Oh,
Superflex PPR start 9. Marty sent Khalil Herbert, the 202. I'm sorry, he received Khalil Herbert, the 202, and the 212, and shipped away Gardner Minshew, Traylon Burks, Isaiah Spiller, and the 402. So what was your thought process on this one?
I wanted to keep Burks. I really did. I went on a Titan absorption like a sponge, I want to say, during the last season, our first season in Dynasty. And I had a lot of faith. I picked up Malik Willis. I picked up Ryan Tannehill. I was going to try to push the draft Levis, but I don't know. Something just happened and the switch turned on. And I just went on a little um, purge to really trade off everybody. Um, Gardner Minshew was a free pickup from the wire, so it really didn't have any impact to me. Um, and then Isaiah Spiller, I've had all season. Yeah, he's going to have a job. It's just time will tell. Eckler has 1 year here with the Chargers, so I was very optimistic with him. The 402 didn't mean anything to me, so that was just extra. So all I was really giving away was Isaiah Spiller and Traylon Burks, and that's how I saw it. For getting Herbert and those 2 second picks, I was enticed. I already have Foreman, so I've enjoyed having another handcuff just like you in your other league. This gave me an opportunity to have two Chicago Bears. I'm not saying there's anything thrilling about that. Justin Fields is going to run all the time, but I got something. But Burks, I think he's going to have a killer season, but I don't know who the QB is going to be, and if he gets injured again, what does that mean?
And in Tennessee, they're historically a run first team. I don't love the quarterback situation there either. So I don't think that was. I definitely think that this was a pretty solid deal for you as well, considering really honestly the only asset of quality you gave up at all was Treylon Burks, and you received three solid pieces. So I definitely am a fan of this one for you as well, regardless of what happens with Khalil Herbert. So we're going
Let
to
me
move
ask
on
your
to the next.
thoughts.
Oh, go ahead. What you got?
Who do you think is going to hold the job for RB1 in Chicago? Do you think it's going to be Foreman, Herbert, or the rookie they just drafted?
Roshan Johnson, I think. They'll probably give Herbert the job in the beginning. I think Roshan Johnson will have a big role, especially in maybe not in pass protection. I don't know how good he is in pass protection, but I know Khalil Herbert was at the bottom of the league in pass protection the past 2 seasons. Um, so I do think I really don't know. It might be a three-headed monster. It's not an offense that I really want a lot of pieces of, honestly. But you know, as a David Montgomery owner in this league, I dealt with Justin Fields vulturing touchdowns all season last year. So, maybe you'll deal with that this year, but we'll see what happens. And I honestly don't really know which direction that backfield is going to go in, but hopefully it's one of the two pieces that you have of it.
Who knows? Maybe I might draft Johnson.
Draft Roshan, and you'll have all three of the Bears running backs.
Oh me, oh
Alrighty, so
my.
we're gonna go to deal four here. So I think I have six in here total. There is one more that I want to talk about, but I'm sure we'll do more of these, so we can include that in the next one. This one is an old deal that we had talked about previously. This one was made right at the conclusion of the last NFL and fantasy season, I believe. I had just won the league in this league that we were in together. So it's a 12-team Superflex PPR Start 9 league, the same league that we've been talking about with your trades. And this is a big one. We have more context now that will kind of allow us to analyze this a little bit better now that we've kind of seen what these picks turn into, or we've got landing spots, I should say, rather, since the rookie draft hasn't happened in this league yet. But this was a big trade. So I ended up sending away AJ Dillon, Drake London, the 101, which is a pretty coveted piece. So the 23 101, and then a 24 second. And in return, I received Amon-Ra St. Brown, who was the biggest piece that I was going for in this deal. Kenneth Walker to replace that Bijan Robinson gap that I'll be missing, giving away the 101. A 24 first that, if everything plays out correctly, has potential to be early, as the guy sending it to me and making this trade has one of the worst teams as of now, and a 24 third. Now, since this trade has happened, we have a landing spot for Bijan Robinson in Atlanta, which we can talk about. We also have the slipping or the sliding of Kenneth Walker with the drafting of Zach Charbonnet as well. So I know your initial thoughts about this as we chatted when the deal was made. What are your thoughts about this months later?
Well, just like I loved it then, I still love it even more now. I mean, my biggest philosophy is it's not bad to have a surplus of one team, but it also can be it can also be the devil too. I mean, like sometimes your overly favored team can perform poorly, or maybe those players aren't the stars for those games, and they really can hurt you in your weekly matchups. Um, Drake London, he's great, but now you got Drake London and Bijan, who's going to be on the same team. And then for more context, the same team now also has the 102, so they'll be picking up either Young or Richardson, one of the two quarterbacks who's a rookie. So regardless, you know, it doesn't really change the value too much of this trade. In fact, I think it betters you. Yeah, Kenneth Walker slid down with the new induction of his teammate, but that doesn't really hurt him too much in this sense of the trade because you got Amon-Ra St. Brown, and he's a young wide receiver one. He's connecting very well with Jared Goff of the Lions. They're going to have a playoff run this year, which is crazy to believe. I can't even imagine them back in the playoffs. I mean, what was it? The last time we seen them was back when they had Metron or something like that. Or I mean, like it's been forever. I mean, it's been a long time. But I think he could have a killer season. And if Walker wants to keep his job, he really has to ball out this year. Does that mean he might get injured? Yeah. But I mean, who's to say that Dylan gets his job this year and Aaron Jones starts slipping up in Green Bay? Like, regardless, I think you got good value for the longevity for St. Brown. For Walker, maybe 1 or 2 years. But those picks, by that time, you might have a 101 again, or maybe a 105 or under. Who knows?
Yeah, and if there's going back to what you said a second ago, if there's one team that I don't want a ton of pieces of alongside Chicago, it'd probably be only team who the team who ran almost as much as they did, and that's Atlanta. I don't love having a ton of Atlanta pieces. I already have Kyle Pitts in that league too, so I would have had Kyle Pitts, Drake London, and Bijan Robinson all in the Falcons. So I wouldn't have been super thrilled about that. And again, I am making a bet that that first rounder of next year is going to be early. And if it is, I think that this trade becomes extremely one sided in my opinion. So,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, that was one of the bigger trades that I've made in recent times. So I definitely wanted to throw that one on here as well. So we're gonna go back to one of yours here. I debated which one I wanted to use between this one and the one with Kadarius Toney. I just thought Elijah Moore is going to be
Oh,
a little bit more of a interesting asset. So before I ask you what you were doing or what you were thinking or your thought process, I will kind of explain what it was. So you received the 201, which I was trying to steal from you in that earlier trade, the 24 second, and you shipped away Elijah Moore and the 204.
well, fortune for me, this team, just like that Kadarius team, I got them both from. It's kind of funny. We have league mates who get rid of players and then they want them back, and sometimes they may pay less to get rid of them, and then they pay more to get them back. I mean, regardless, I felt fine with this trade. I like Elijah Moore. I like the potential he has. I know without at this time I didn't know where D Hop was going, and there was a lot of speculation about him going to the Browns, so it also worried me a little. I know today we heard that New England has given him a formal offer, but he's not going to do anything yet. It's still so early. Um, but that was my thought process at the time. Do I want to just impact his value now, or do I want to just ship him off, free up some space for a rookie, and see if another guy can be good? Now, don't get me wrong, Elijah Moore, he's good. He's gonna be good. He's playing the slot role. He's a wide receiver too. He's gonna be right behind Amari Cooper. I got no issues with him. But I did like the offer I was given, and I like moving up, 3 spots. And later down the road, I eventually got that 204 back. But still, it was nice to move up, 3 spots.
Yeah, so my thoughts on this trade is Elijah Moore for the a random 24 second, which is a fair deal. I mean, I think that that's fair value across the board, and then that puts you just at a little bit of an advantage moving up a little bit in the second round to that 201. So um, the asset that you're able to get at the 201 will probably be good enough, if not better in terms of production, in terms of being comparable to Elijah Moore. So I think you'll be able to replace that production with one of those with that draft pick. So and I didn't say this is the same start nine league. So again, shallow format. So Elijah Moore probably not making your lineup many weeks. So
Mm-mm.
I definitely think it's worth it to cash out and get some draft capital there. So we're
And
gonna move on and oh, go ahead. You're
you know
fine.
what the funniest thing though about Elijah Moore in the real NFL draft? He was the first pick of the second round by the Jets.
And yeah, yes, and so yeah, he has a lot. He has high draft capital. People forget and how good he was as
Hmm.
a rookie too.
Mississippi State, I think.
Uh, Ole Miss.
Ole Miss, sorry.
Yeah, he's an Ole Miss guy, I think as well. All right, the last one I've got for you is another interesting one from that other league that you haven't seen. I want to get your thoughts on this one. This one was made months and months ago as well. This is that same league, and I wanted to basically my idea with this is I wanted to kind of limit some of my exposure to Amon Ra since I had just acquired him in a different league. And I wanted to kind of diversify and get a hold of some other assets and players that I didn't have before or didn't have otherwise. So what I ended up doing, so this is that 12 team Superflex PPR start 11, and I ended up sending away Amon Ra and Devin Singletary, who I ended up getting back, which is kind of funny. And I ended up getting Chris Olave and the 205. Now, for some context, in a trade, before I get your thoughts on this, in a trade that I didn't put on here, but I wanted to, I ended up trading that 205, the 201, and a 24 first in our rookie draft to get up to the 103 to draft Bryce Young because I needed a
Huh.
quarterback and I felt pretty good about that. So I ended up trading that pick. But knowing that and knowing what I did with it, what do you think about this one?
I got faith in Olave. I like Derek Carr. I think it was a very smart move. Derek Carr is going to be playing there for a couple of years. Um, so that's going to really enhance Olave's abilities. He's a young, really talented Ohio State receiver. I admire him. Um, the sky's the limit. I mean, he could outplay Amron St. Brown. I mean, who knows? But for what you're trying to do, you seem like you were trying to economize like I am in our league on picks and trying to create some rookies and maybe some future value. I think you did the right thing. Is it risky? Yeah. I mean, it's the Saints. No disrespect to them. Um, Anything can go wrong. Time will tell. But I like this one. You're just going back a little younger.
Yeah, and it was right after the startup, and Olave and Amon Ra went pretty close. I think Olave went half a round later, and 205 for Devin Singletary is a smash. So that
Oh
was my
yeah, yeah,
thought
yeah.
process on that one. So again, we'll see what happens in that league. I'm young. I don't have my first this year, which is not a great position to be in. But crazier things have happened, I guess, than winning with Olave as your wide receiver one. So
Who's your other wide receivers in this team?
I'll have to look. I have Chris Olave, Judy Godwin, and then some Elijah Moore and some guys like that. But I do have Josh Allen in that league, so that kind of will help me a little bit. And I
Yeah, that
also have
will.
Bryce Young and guys like Kenny Pickett and Miles Sanders. I have Hawkinson, and it's a tight end premium, so it's an interesting team. I don't know how good it'll be. But and that reminds me, before we end up or before we end here, we will also do some roster reviews and things together as well. Maybe if you feel like coming on and doing that, where we'll pop up each other's rosters and kind of analyze the direction of our team and what we've got going on, maybe in some other leagues. So you know, we also have a startup coming up in 3 weeks or so, so we'll have some content to
Something
put
like
out
that.
for that.
We got like less than
Uh,
50 days for our big one.
well, the rookie draft in our league is in one of our leagues is which is a late rookie draft is in about 50 days, but our startup is in less than 3 weeks, or it's 3 weeks
Yeah,
from
it's next
tomorrow.
month. Yeah.
So, but Marty, thank you for doing this with me. Uh,
No, of
it was a
course.
it was a good time, and we'll be doing plenty more things like this over here on at DDF. All kinds of things in store that I've got. I've got visions for things, everything from mock drafts to trade reviews to uh, you know predictions for the 2023 season. So stay tuned for lots of content coming your way, and hit if on YouTube, hit the like button, rate the podcast on Spotify, and I appreciate all of the listens and any kind of support that I can get there. Again, thank you, Marty, for joining me, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you for having me, and you do the same. Later.
Take care.